All right, question box number 7.1. First guy I'm going to answer is Scott Savage. As always, he really wants to dive into the tactical use of listening, which often I think is the best use. You get too strategic with listening, and you're going to make it about yourself. So tactically, he says, all right, you got a hostage situation. The man's robbing a bank. He's got 7 innocent hostages. He's trapped and desperate. You get to ask him one question. He's going to answer it truthfully, but only one question. It's an easy call, Scott. This is the question. Are you ready? How do you see this ending today? Scott, how do you see this ending today? That's the question. Now let's break it down. So it's an open-ended question. Those of you who've been through my workshops or read my book, you know I favor open-ended questions, particularly those that start with how, what, or what if, or if. Or a good old tell me, but since you wanted a question, I went with a grammatically standard question. So how do you see this ending? What's it accomplish? First of all, it's totally focused on the person, on them, and it forces them to imagine what's going to go on. So we get hopefully a little bit of a rational boost in their mental makeup on the answer. It's centered on the future. It is reality testing, right? If they give me some ridiculous and totally implausible ending to the day, like, I see it ending with you guys giving me all the money in the bank and letting me leave with all the hostages, then I know that we're dealing with an irrational actor. It gives me a very rational and plausible ending to the story. Okay, that's something. That tells me something. If he has no idea how it ends, that tells me something else, and that's troubling. If he takes this opportunity to tell me that he intends to hurt people or hurt the police, or that this is a very elaborate officer-precipitated homicide situation, sometimes called officer-initiated suicide, okay, now we know. That question gives the subject all of these options, and how they answer is an incredible insight for tactical listening purposes, but also for tactical purposes. Now the SWAT team knows who we're up against. So, and it also allows them to tell the story of how this ends on their own terms, in their own language, and in a way that lets them tell the whole story. Because now I can't interrupt, because Scott said I can only ask one question. So I'm going to just receive it and encourage the answer and reflect upon it. So there's your answer, Scott Savage. Now here's my question for you. You ready? All right, you are an FTO, you're a field training officer, and your new officer that you're training is getting towards the end of the final phase. They've gone all the way through the academy. The department's invested all this money in them. They're ready to hit the streets and help your department with their staffing shortage. And you're having a candid conversation with your recruit officer, your field trainee, and they bring up the fact that they've really decided that they want to be a police officer still. They don't know if they can take a human life, and they've stopped carrying one in the chamber. How do you deal with that? How do you address that administratively, but also how do you deal with it as a trainer, as someone who is in charge of caring for this officer while protecting your department? I'm anxious to hear how you would handle this scenario.